Tonight, your challenge is to separate what is true from what is false. Some real, some fake. Can you judge which are fact and which are fiction? To find out, you must enter a world of both truth and deception. A world that is beyond belief.
In 2018, in Charlottesville, Virginia, a man named Thomas Whitaker made a purchase that would lead investigators to one of the most unsettling files that they had ever encountered. Whitaker, 39 years old, was a certified public accountant. According to county records, he had no criminal history, no history of mental illness, and no documented involvement with fringe or occult practices. By every available account, Thomas was a practical, skeptical man. Friends described him as methodical, careful with money, and a man who believed in facts and figures, not stories and superstitions. But on the evening of February 23, 2018, Whitaker logged on to a popular online auction site and placed a bid on something extraordinary. A set of eagle feathers. The listing claimed that the feathers had been removed from a Native American reservation decades earlier. Possession of eagle feathers without a federal permit violates the Bald and Golden Eagle Protection Act. But Thomas ignored the law, and he ignored something else. A warning printed in the auction listing itself. These feathers are sacred. They must be treated with respect. To mock them is to mock the spirits. To disrespect them is to invite their anger. Investigators later found that Thomas dismissed this message as nonsense. In an email to a friend recovered from his personal account, he wrote, "Scored a set of so-called sacred feathers. They're mine now. Guess I'll see if the spirits want to audit my taxes." The package arrived on March 2nd, and inside the box, 3 eagle feathers, long, dark, and striking. They came wrapped in paper. Along with them, a handwritten note. "These feathers carry prayers. Handle them with care." Thomas laughed. He placed the note in the trash, and he displayed the feathers casually on his coffee table. That night, the disturbances began. In his later statement to investigators, Thomas described a sudden drop in temperature throughout his house. He heard what he called footsteps pacing on hardwood floors, even though his home was fully carpeted, and he reported hearing faint drumming sounds, rhythmic, deliberate, though his nearest neighbor lived 100 yards away. He told police he believed, at first, that these were the quirks of an old house, but over the next several nights, the activity escalated. Electoral records later confirmed unusual surges in power to the property, coinciding with his claims the lights flickered on and off by themselves. Phone records showed multiple late-night calls to friends, during which he said that he was unable to sleep because of shadows moving in the corners. And, in his own handwritten journal, investigators discovered this entry. "Dreamed of figures again. Painted faces. Eyes glowing. They watched me all night. I don't think that they want me here." Neighbors began to notice changes in his behavior. One recalled him asking whether anyone in the neighborhood played drums at night, and when she told him no, she said that his face went pale. Another neighbor described seeing him outside after midnight, pacing in the yard, clutching something long and dark in his hand. By the 3rd week, Whitaker's fear had overtaken his skepticism. He attempted to remove the feathers from his home. He locked them in a drawer. He stored them in his garage. But the disturbances continued. In one statement he said, "I feel like they follow me. I can hear them even when I'm not near the feathers." On March 24th, Thomas tried something else. He placed the feathers in his fireplace and set them alight. Witnesses later interviewed recalled hearing shouting and seeing smoke from his chimney that night. But Thomas reported that the feathers would not burn. He said he left them in the flames until the logs turned to ash, and when he pulled them out with tongs, they were unscathed, not a single mark. That same night, multiple 911 calls were placed by neighbors reporting what they described as violent shaking and roaring noises coming from his home. Emergency dispatch logs confirmed the calls, though no responding officers were ever dispatched. Thomas himself recorded in his journal, "The house moved, glass shattered, frames fell. I dropped to my knees. I begged them to stop. I told them that I was sorry." On March 27th, in desperation, Thomas contacted a cultural preservation group affiliated with a nearby reservation. According to the group's internal notes, he admitted to purchasing eagle feathers online, mocking them, and attempting to destroy them. He begged for their assistance. 2 representatives traveled to his home the next day. They later submitted sworn statements. They confirmed that the feathers were still intact. They wrapped them in ceremonial cloth, recited prayer, and conducted a cleansing ritual in Whitaker's living room. Afterward, Thomas reported that the disturbances ceased. The feathers were taken into the group's custody. Their final location is unknown. In the months that followed, Thomas withdrew from public life. Friends said that he was quieter, more solemn. He never again spoke of the feathers. But in one final journal entry, dated April 14, 2018, he wrote, "Some things are not mine to own. I will never forget their eyes." So what happened in that quiet suburban home? Was Thomas Whitaker the victim of guilt, unraveling under the weight of his own conscience? Did stress and sleepless nights conjure visions that felt all too real? Or did his mockery awaken something ancient, something bound to feathers passed down through generations, never meant to be sold, never meant to be handled carelessly? The case remains closed. The official explanation lists no crimes, no evidence of wrongdoing beyond the illegal purchase. Yet to those who know him, the truth is stranger. Sacred or superstition, guilt or fact? What do you believe? Was this a case of a man losing his grip on reality, or an encounter with power beyond human understanding? At 1:40 p.m., the Frederick Police Department received a welfare call. A friend reported that 34-year-old Shannon Watts had missed a doctor's appointment that morning. She was pregnant with her 3rd child. Missing appointments was unlike her. According to police dispatch log 18-5448, officers were sent to 2825 Saratoga Trail. Inside the house, they found Shannon's purse, her phone, as well as her keys. Her car remained in the garage, but Shannon and her 2 daughters, 4-year-old Bella and 3-year-old Celeste, were nowhere to be found. That evening, Shannon's husband, 33-year-old Christopher Lee Watts, gave his first interview to investigators. Detective Baumhomer's field notes described Watts as calm, cooperative, offered theories of voluntary disappearance, demeanor noted as inconsistent with circumstances. On August 14th, the case shifted into high gear. The Colorado Bureau of Investigation and FBI joined the search. Neighbors allowed detectives to review surveillance footage. And at 5:27 a.m. on August 13th, cameras recorded Chris Watts backing his work truck into the driveway, loading items onto the vehicle for nearly an hour. Later testimony revealed that these items included Shannon's body and the still living children. Forensics would later confirm fibers from the children's bedding inside the truck. And on August 15th, investigators invited Watts to take a polygraph examination. FBI Special Agent Tammy Lee administered the test. Polygraph case record 18-PLG-32 states, subject displayed deceptive responses on all control questions. Examiner's professional opinion. Subject withholding critical information. After failing the polygraph, Watts confessed. Partially. He claimed that he had strangled Shannon after witnessing her attempting to smother the children. He described his actions as a sudden rage. But investigators had already begun to uncover evidence of a different story. Cell phone tower data placed Watts at a remote Anadarko petroleum oil site the morning of Shannon's disappearance. Cadaver dogs deployed at the site alerted at 2 oil tanks and a disturbed patch of earth. On August 16th, Shannon Watts' body was recovered in a shallow grave near the site. Autopsy report 18-231 listed cause of death as manual strangulation. She was 15 weeks pregnant with a boy, and it was to be named Nico. Near the grave, investigators discovered the bodies of Bella and Celeste. Both were found submerged in separate oil tanks. Weald County coroner's notes described the deaths as asphyxia due to smothering. Toxicology revealed the presence of petroleum hydrocarbons in their system, consistent with submersion. The autopsy further revealed chilling details. Bella, the eldest, had bite injuries inside her cheek and tongue. According to the coroner's summary, findings were consistent with struggle during asphyxiation. Investigators returned to Watts with the evidence, and at this point, he admitted to killing Shannon, as well as his daughters. But he continued to insist that Shannon had harmed the children first. Text messages recovered from Shannon's phone paint a different picture. In the weeks before her death, she confided in her friends about Chris's coldness and distance. Messages dated July 24th read, "I don't know who he is anymore. He doesn't touch me. something is wrong. Digital forensics later revealed that Chris Watts had been having an affair with a coworker, Nicole Kissinger. Call logs show that he spoke to her for over 2 hours late at night on August 12th, just hours before the murders. Financial records painted yet another motive. Bank statements showed the Watts family was tens of thousands of dollars in debt. Court documents confirmed Chris and Shannon had filed for bankruptcy in 2015. And on August 21st, 2018, Chris Watts was formally charged with 5 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of unlawful termination of pregnancy, and 3 counts of tampering with deceased bodies. Court transcript number 2018-CR-2003 records District Attorney Michael Rorick's words. The defendant annihilated his entire family in cold blood to seek a fresh start. Medical evaluations performed during his pre-sentencing described Watts as displaying flat affect, minimal emotional reactivity, and narcissistic traits consistent with manipulative behavior. On November 16, 2018, Watts pled guilty to all 9 counts. Prosecutors agreed not to pursue the death penalty at the request of Shannon's family. And on November 19th, Judge Marcelo Kopkow sentenced Watts to 5 consecutive life sentences without parole, plus an additional 84 years for other charges. In his ruling, the judge said, "This is perhaps the most inhumane and vicious crime that I've handled in my career." Even in sentencing, chilling details emerged. According to a supplemental interview conducted by investigators in 2019, Watts admitted the truth. He smothered his daughters in the backseat of his truck as they rode with their mother's body lying on the floor. Bella fought back, struggling for air, and Celeste followed shortly after. These admissions, recorded in FBI interview log 19-INT-07, contradicted every earlier claim Watts had made. But the question still remains: why? Court psychologists noted Watts had no prior violent history. He was described by friends and neighbors as quiet, polite, and even timid. Yet records show careful planning, moving his truck before dawn, hiding the bodies at a remote worksite, and attempting to create a narrative of disappearance. Digital records confirm Google searches days earlier for vacation plans, lyrics about starting over, and instructions on how to maintain an affair. According to FBI Behavioral Analysis Unit Report 18-BAU-22, subject displays hallmarks of family annihilator typology, financial strain, extramarital relationship, and a perception of a new life incompatible with current obligations. Today, Chris Watts remains incarcerated at Dodge Correctional Institution in Wisconsin. He is held in protective custody due to the nature of his crimes. The Watts case forces us to confront an unsettling truth: how ordinary facades can conceal monstrous intent. A family home in the suburbs, smiling photographs on social media, a seemingly devoted father, and behind it, premeditated annihilation. So what truly happened in the mind of Christopher Lee Watts? Was the man broken by debt, an affair, and the fear of responsibility? Or was it something darker? A narcissist willing to sacrifice everything closest to him to pursue his own desires? In East Los Angeles, murals cover the walls like open books. They tell stories of history, of culture, and of struggle. But in the summer of 2002, one mural on Sato Street became the center of a police investigation that remains unsolved to this day. The mural was painted on the side of an abandoned liquor store. Bright colors, religious symbols, a depiction of the Virgin Mary framed by roses, with skeletal figures painted beneath her feet. According to local accounts, it was commissioned by the street crew known as Los Reyes 13. But almost as soon as the mural appeared, strange things began to happen. According to LAPD records, within 2 weeks of the mural's completion, 3 members of Los Reyes vanished. Each one was last seen near the mural. Their cars were later found abandoned just blocks away. No signs of struggle, and no bodies ever recovered. The first to disappear was Miguel Spooky Alvarez, 19 years old. Police noted that he was last seen spray painting initials on the lower corner of the mural, disrespecting the Virgin's image. Witnesses later reported hearing shouting, though no one saw Miguel leave. His bicycle was discovered the next morning, leaning against the wall, and he was never seen again. The second disappearance occurred just days later. Ramon Torres, 22, was picked up on surveillance cameras walking past the mural at 2:17 a.m. The tape showed him pausing, staring at the painted Virgin. Then the camera glitched, static filled the feed, and when the picture returned, Ramon was gone. The third was Julio Hernandez, a veteran member of the crew. Friends told police Julio had mocked the mural openly, calling it cursed. His girlfriend reported that Julio dreamed repeatedly of being pulled into the painting itself. On July 3rd, Julio walked towards the liquor store and never came home. His wallet and shoes were found at the base of the mural. Police opened a missing persons investigation. Case file 2002-45713 documents interviews with multiple witnesses. Several reported hearing chanting at night near the wall. Others said that candles appeared at the mural's base, though no one admitted placing them. One witness, a local shop owner, stated, "I saw kids standing in front of it, just staring, like they were hypnotized. And then they walked away, but it felt like something had stayed behind." Detectives examined the mural itself. Forensics reports confirm no unusual substances in the paint, only standard aerosol spray and latex primer. But photographs of the mural revealed something strange. Faint distortions, blurred outlines around the skeletal figures, as if they shifted slightly between frames. Investigators chalked it up to poor lighting, but locals were not convinced. The case gained more attention when non-gang residents began reporting disturbances. A mother living across the street filed a report saying her 10-year-old son woke up screaming every night, insisting that the Virgin's eyes moved. According to her sworn statement, he said that the lady in the wall was looking right at him. He said that she wanted him to come closer. Medical records from White Memorial Hospital confirmed the boy was treated for night terrors and sleepwalking during this period. And on July 18th, the police responded to the call at the mural site. A 16-year-old boy had collapsed on the sidewalk in front of the wall. Paramedics reported that he was unconscious, mumbling in Spanish. Hospital records described his condition as catatonia. He later told doctors that he remembered falling into the wall and hearing voices chanting in prayer. The boy recovered, but the disappearances continued. And by late July, 5 young men had gone missing, all connected to the mural. Police reports listed them as presumed runaway, gang-related cases, but officers off record admitted something else. Every disappearance left behind personal belongings at the foot of the Virgin: shoes, wallets, rosaries, and even a tattoo needle. On August 2nd, detectives brought in Father Luis Navarro, a local priest familiar with barrio religious iconography. In his statement, he said, "The mural is not simply art. It was made as a promise: the Virgin above, death below, a covenant of protection for some, and destruction for others." That same week, LAPD shut down access to the site. The liquor store was boarded up, but residents say that at night, candles still appear at the base of the wall. Some claim that the Virgin's face grew darker, her painted eyes hollowing out. And then came the final disappearance. On August 14th, Daniel Okoa, 20 years old, was arrested for vandalism near the mural. Police dashcam footage shows him resisting, shouting that he had to finish what he started. Officers noted that he smelled of paint thinner. Daniel was booked and held overnight. According to the jail log, he was released the following morning at 8:12 a.m. And at 9:03 a.m., less than an hour later, a call came in from a street vendor. He reported seeing Daniel standing in front of the mural, hands pressed against the Virgin's painted robe, whispering to himself. The vendor turned away for only a moment, but when he looked back, Daniel was gone. Police responded immediately. They found no trace of Daniel, but at the base of the mural lay his county-issued wristband from the jail. At this point, the case was turned over to the LAPD's Special Investigations Unit. Internal memos, later leaked, described the mural as an active site of unexplained phenomena with multiple disappearances linked. Officers requested the wall be painted over, and the city complied. And by September, the mural was gone, buried beneath a coat of gray paint, and the disappearances stopped. But the story doesn't end there. Years later, in 2009, during renovations to the building, workers stripped the gray paint away, and beneath it, the Virgin's image had bled back through, faint, but visible. Work crews refused to continue, citing unease. And according to police records, no further disappearances have been officially linked to the site. But residents still have candles at the corner of Soto Street, and some say, if you look closely at night, the Virgin's eyes still follow you. So, what really happened in East LA in the summer of 2002? Were these disappearances the result of gang violence, buried beneath layers of fear and silence? Did young men really vanish on the streets as so many before them, casualties of life at the margins? Or did a mural, painted with intention and defiance, become something more than art, something that demanded offerings? The LAPD closed the file without resolution. The families of the missing are left with questions, and the mural, though hidden, remains a shadow in the barrio's memory. Springfield Township, New Jersey, August 7th, 1972. 16-year-old Jeanette Christine DePalma leaves her family's home on Clearview Road. She tells her mother that she's heading to a friend's house, planning to take the train. According to the Springfield Police Department initial report, case file 72-081, Jeanette was last seen at approximately 4:10 p.m. She never arrived at her friend's house, and by evening, when she failed to return, her parents filed a missing persons report. For 6 weeks, there was no sign of her. And then, on September 19th, a dog belonging to a local resident dragged home what appeared to be a decomposed human arm. Sheriff's Department Incident Log Entry 92-1972 reads, resident at Baltusrol Avenue discovered remains brought in by canine, possible juvenile female. Scene secured. Request homicide unit. The arm was quickly confirmed to belong to Jeanette. The following morning, officers searched Hoedale Quarry, known locally as the Devil's Teeth, for its jagged cliffs, and found the rest of her remains. What they documented there has haunted investigators ever since. Police photographs, later summarized in an evidence inventory, described the body positioned at the top of the cliff. Surrounding it was what appeared to be a coffin-shaped outline made of branches. Smaller wooden crosses were scattered in the perimeter. Some officers even reported the faint shape of a pentagon carved into the dirt. Springfield Police Supplement 72-093 states, unusual arrangement of debris surrounding remains. Multiple indicators suggest ritualistic placement, and consultation requested with clergy. But the medical examiner's findings told a less certain story. Autopsy Report 248-72 lists causes of death as undetermined. Decomposition prevented conclusions, and toxicology revealed no drugs or alcohol. The report noted, no blunt force trauma observed, no bullet or stab wounds. Possibility of strangulation cannot be excluded. The occult overtones quickly drew attention, and Reverend James Tate, a local pastor, told reports, this looks like the work of Satanists. We can't rule out witchcraft. Community panic spread, rumors of cults practicing in the woods, of animals disappearing, and of strange gatherings after dark. Yet, according to official statements, no hard evidence of occult involvement was ever recorded. The medical examiner warned against speculation. And still, the scene raised questions that remained unanswered. Witness interviews filed with the sheriff's office described teenagers using the quarry as a hangout spot. One girl claimed that she had seen candles and heard chanting days before the body was found. Another swore that she saw men in dark robes near the cliffs weeks earlier. None of these accounts were corroborated. And in the months that followed, the investigation produced fewer results. And by winter, the case had gone cold. But the mystery refused to fade. In the 1990s, the magazine Weird NJ revisited the story. Their editor spoke with former officers who admitted, off the record, that many in the department believed that Jeanette had been killed in a ritual. Some went further, suggesting that the case file itself had been tampered with. The claim gained traction in 1999, when Hurricane Floyd flooded the Springfield Municipal Building. According to an internal memorandum from the township clerk's office, case materials pertaining to the DePalma death were lost due to water damage, whether by accident or design. The original files were gone, and in 2015, author Jesse P. Pollock published Death on the Devil's Teeth. His research unearthed additional leads, including reports of a transient man suspected of violence against women, and claims that Jeanette may have been targeted for her Christian faith. But the most disturbing development came in 2021, when convicted serial killer Richard Cottingham, known as the Torso Killer, allegedly sent correspondence to Pollock implying knowledge of the case. Law enforcement confirmed receiving the material, but stated publicly, no accountable evidence at this time. Throughout all of this, one fact remains unchanged. No one has ever been charged. Medical records show Jeanette was in good health. School files described her as bright, well-liked, and deeply religious. Friends recalled that she often carried a Bible with her and had recently spoken of dedicating herself more fully to her faith. To the family, that made the crime scene, with its crude crosses and coffin shape, feel like a direct mockery. Her mother, Florence, said in a 1973 interview, "They put her there on purpose. They wanted to make a statement." So what really happened on that summer afternoon in 1972? Did Jeanette stumble into the wrong company? A group dabbling in rituals who will silence her forever? Was she the victim of an opportunistic predator, her body later staged to look like something else? Or did rumor and fear distort the evidence, turning tragedy into urban legend? The police file is gone, the autopsy inconclusive. Witnesses have aged, memory has burned, but the name remains. Jeanette Christine De Palma, 16 years old, a life cut short, and a death that has never been explained. Mason Creek, Kentucky, a town fewer than 3,000 people, tucked away in the Appalachian foothills. Life here was slow, quiet, the kind of place where everyone knew your name, where neighbors waved from porches and churches doubled as community halls. But in 2004, the peaceful town would become the center of one of the strangest and darkest investigations in the state's history. The man at the center was Daniel Joseph Rourke. Born in 1969, Rourke lived his entire life in Mason Creek. He worked as a mechanic, never left town, and never had a criminal record. Those who knew him described him as quiet, polite, and deeply religious. He attended Sunday services faithfully and kept mostly to himself. But behind closed doors, Daniel was living another life. One steeped in secrecy, violence, and devotion to fringe religious sects that called themselves the Children of Ezekiel. The first documented sign of trouble came on March 18, 2004. According to police dispatch log 04-117, deputies responded to a complaint of chanting and screaming in the woods off County Road 16. When they arrived, they found a bonfire surrounded by nearly a dozen townspeople on their knees. Above them stood Daniel Rourke, eyes closed, and reading from a battered Bible. Deputy field notes from that night record, subject appeared entranced, unresponsive to direct questioning. Participants identified themselves as the Children of Ezekiel. No immediate crime observed. Warning issued. The incident seemed odd, but not criminal, and officers left without making arrests. And weeks later, they would regret that decision. On March 27th, 18-year-old Hannah Collins was reported missing. According to Missing Persons Report 04-133, she was last seen leaving her family home, telling her mother that she was attending a Bible study. But she never returned. Friends interviewed later said that Hannah had become distant in the weeks before her disappearance. She spoke obsessively of fire, of cleansing, and of being chosen. Her final text message recovered from her phone read, "Don't worry, I'll be with the chosen tonight." Police questioned Daniel Rourke. An interview transcript 04-INT-12 records his chilling words. Hannah has left this world behind. She is with the Father now. And he refused to elaborate. 2 months later, another disappearance. This time it was Aaron Bennett, a 42-year-old father of 3. His truck was found abandoned near a derelict tobacco farm, and inside, investigators discovered bloodstains on the floor, partially cleaned. Forensic lab report 04-FOR-19 confirmed the blood matched Bennett's DNA, and his body was never recovered. And by June, investigators were convinced something larger was at work. The Kentucky Bureau of Investigation formed a task force. Undercover officers infiltrated the group's meetings, documenting disturbing practices. Confidential surveillance memo 04-CS-22 describes members fasting for days, reciting scripture until exhaustion, and enduring lashings and beatings for perceived failures. At the center of every meeting stood Daniel Rourke, claiming to speak with God, demanding obedience, and promising salvation only through suffering. On June 17th, authorities raided a farmhouse being used by the sect. What they found inside would horrify even seasoned investigators. The official property inventory, filed as evidence log 04-INV-07, lists handwritten journals referencing sacrifice, the chosen, and blood offerings. They recovered videotapes labeled purification rites, chains and whips, wooden crosses stained with blood, and a ledger of names, some marked with a cross, others with a circle. Most disturbing of all was Rourke's diary. One entry excerpt of 04-D-7 read, "The weak will fall away. The chosen will pass through the fire." Hannah was first. She did not resist. 2 weeks later, on July 2nd, skeletal remains were discovered in a shallow grave in the woods. Sheriff Report 04-REC-51 confirms that the remains were identified through dental records as Hannah Collins. Autopsy Report 04-AU-26 determined the cause of death was blunt force trauma to the skull. Multiple fractures consistent with repeated strikes from a blunt instrument. Autopsy reports 04-AU-26 determined the cause of death was blunt force trauma to the skull. Coroner's notes described multiple fractures consistent with repeated strikes from a blunt instrument. A wooden staff recovered from the farmhouse, stained with blood, matched both Hannah's DNA and Rourke's fingerprints. And that same day, Daniel Rourke was arrested. Booking Report 04-BK-33 records his demeanor as calm, cooperative, and silent. He carried a small Bible, which he clutched tightly and refused to release even during intake. Once inside Mason County Jail, his influence did not fade. Jail behavior logs described him as leading prayer circles, persuading fellow inmates to give him food, cigarettes, even clothing, and some began calling him a teacher. During a psychological evaluation, he was described as highly charismatic, with a delusional belief system, and narcissistic personality traits with psychotic features. Risk level, extreme. And then Rourke's trial began in December of 2004. The court transcript contains chilling testimony from a young woman who had escaped the sect. She told jurors, "He said Hannah was chosen to suffer. He said God required her sacrifice, and we were not to question it." Another witness described seeing Aaron Bennett chained in the barn, beaten for days until he lost consciousness. Bennett's body was never found, but prosecutors tied the blood evidence directly to Rourke's leadership. Medical records from Mason County General Hospital documented multiple followers treated for starvation, burns, as well as broken bones. One patient told the doctors that she was punished for failing to memorize scripture. And after 4 hours of deliberation, the jury returned its verdict. Daniel Rourke was found guilty of second-degree murder, kidnapping, as well as multiple counts of aggravated assault. And on December 12, 2004, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. But even after Rourke's conviction, questions remain. Between 2005 and 2009, several members of the Children of Ezekiel disappeared quietly from Mason Creek. Some were never seen again, and investigators believe splinter groups may still operate in rural Kentucky as well as Tennessee. In 2012, the FBI received an anonymous letter. It read, "The prophet still speaks. His words are carried by those who remain." The letter was filed under FBI Evidence 12-LTR-44, but the sender was never identified. Today, Daniel Rourke resides at the Kentucky State Penitentiary. Correctional officers report that he continues to lead prayer meetings inside, and disciplinary logs describe inmates tattooing Ezekiel verses across their arms as well as their chest. Even behind bars, his influence persists.
Join us for more stories next time on Beyond Belief, Fact or Fiction.